Hey, Stefan, how are you? Can you hear me okay? I can't hear you. Must be. mm, Yeah, that's good. Thanks. I'm super. How are you?
Not too bad. Just finishing up with everything right now.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
Uh, I will be once this is done.
What are your plans in the summer?
Um, on Thursday, and then critical practice and research methods.
So you're taking both this summer.
I am, yes.
Uh, you're a you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, might as well do it. It's like ripping off a band-aid. Do it one.
Maybe. But you know what? That will free up your head to focus on all the other stuff that will happen once the routine starts this fall. I'm actually glad that you're taking grad school without skipping a beat. I think that'll be good for you.
Honestly, I just want to get it done. I've been at this for way too long.
Yeah. But that's okay. And Nathaniel, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm super sparkly.
Good.
I posted a picture of you, in your tuxedo on Instagram last week, which connected to Twitter and Facebook, and I have a few friends on my friends list, and everyone was, I would say, wildly excited about your turnout, right? So I that was really fitting for you to do that, and hilarious for me to see that.
Well, great.
We're gonna have to get you though to buy a bow tie
I know.
that you can tie yourself.
I have one real one, but I got
I
good at a normal knot, so I just figured.
Yeah, they are actually easier to tie than a necktie.
Are they?
But it just takes some practice. The first few times, your elbows up in the air like that kind of hurt a little bit because you want to keep perfecting the knot. So you keep doing it over and over again. And that's why I never brush my teeth for more than 2 minutes, right? But back when I first started teaching, that's all I wore. They were actually a little less expensive, and they were more readily available down south because everybody wore a bow tie down there. So yeah. I have maybe 35 or 40 different bow ties that on any given occasion I'll wear, but I only wear them about once or twice a year, to be honest. But they're a lot of fun, and they look good when they're hand tied because they're imperfect, right? Slightly imperfect, and so when you've got the nice cut of the coat, that you're wearing for your tuxedo, and all of those other bits, everything is really refined, and then the bow tie tends to sort of be the only thing that you can be irreverent about. Maybe your cummerbund, maybe your socks, but the bow tie is the most sort of acceptable, right?
I need to get into it. I know. I'm on the cusp of a millennial, so I don't know if I can pull it off.
Just do it. John, are you walking across the Ambassador Bridge?
Yeah. No, just walking back from work. Figured I'd see if this works on my phone. I guess it does.
Stay in the pedestrians only lane. Don't get clipped by a bad Detroit driver.
Yeah.
You're exhausting me watching you. I think I'm going to switch over to Cody. How are you, Cody? You're look like you're meditating outside under a high voltage line.
I was outside doing some yard work and remembered we had class tonight. So
last one.
Yep.
It'll get dark behind you by the end of tonight.
That'll light me up a little bit.
Yeah. By the end of the class, sounds good. Andrew, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. It's great to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Definitely great to meet you in person. Thank you.
Likewise. Yeah, I was really appreciative. Did you make good use of your time while you were here?
Not too much, just kind of relax for once. That's
Cool.
my one vacation I'll have.
Awesome. And where do you live where are you from here?
When I was there, I was living in apartments on Southfield for the 4 years that I was on campus. So
I
this
see.
was the first semester that I was doing online.
And are you from that part of the world or this part of the world?
I'm from Shelton. It's my hometown. So I've been here all my life, actually.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we're glad to have you back, and thanks for making that trip.
Oh, definitely.
See. Oh, there's Casey. Casey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Alec, how are you?
Doing well.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Did you get the email from Trevor? Said he's busy.
I did. I just got it.
I've been talking to him. He says if we're going through the groups like before, if we're probably going to be one of the last ones.
Yeah, so we'll schedule you later.
Right, and he said if it's later, he can probably hop on for that. So
Great. Okay, well, we're almost all here. John's freaking me out. He's walking so much.
I'm almost home. Don't worry.
Good.
Another
make
5
sure-
minutes.
Make sure you pop a Molson when you get in.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll pop 2.
Yeah, one for me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. So I spent the weekend organizing all of the sort of final grade sheets, and I've distributed those to you. I shared them initially with Professor Farrow on Saturday after I finished them, and then Sunday with you after I had a chance to sleep on them. I also shared a late crop of review remarks to the individual teams on the Thursday session. I want to make sure that you got those. Also, I shared with you the review comments from our critters from Tuesday and Thursday nights, I think about as promptly as I possibly could. And I do that, as you know, from the very sort of beginning of the semester to give you, I think, a lot of feedback that you might not normally get in a traditional sort of studio environment. Feedback that is unfiltered, maybe a little uncontextualized, because, you know, not all of the critics that we bring in have, you know, familiarity with the sort of critical process that we go through in a studio. You can take those comments, if you can read them at all, with a grain of salt. But I do think that they're very helpful. I do think that they're very useful, just to make sure that you're accustomed to getting a wide range of feedback on a project, because actually that's kind of comparable to what you might expect to find even on a zoning board, or if you're serving on the board at your mosque or synagogue or your church, and you're making a case for an addition or something like that. You will get people that just flat out, you know, disagree with you, and you need to be prepared to hear that. And it's in the line of architecture, right, that you'll hear those disagreements. So hearing that and seeing those kinds of comments is healthy. and I think it gives you a little bit more sort of expectation, right? That the studio is a rich and varied environment that won't necessarily give you or pander to you just because you're good, or crab at you just because you're weak. You're going to get a wide range of feedback, and I'm happy to have been able to provide that for you, and I hope that you've benefited from that. So you've had 3 benchmarks, you've had different critics, you've had the opportunity to present 3 times, and I just want to open up the floor for a moment, just in general, to talk a little bit about the feedback that you have for those experiences, and then I want to close with a few moments of remarks that I prepared for tonight that I'm planning on sharing with you. So let's go right into kind of the general discussion that you have, the general impressions that you have for one another and for Professor Farrow and me. Anybody can speak.
I think the studio worked out pretty well. I mean, this is my first online studio, and I was pretty impressed with it. I think it worked a lot better than I expected it to be. The lab portion was difficult for sure. Getting into that much detail, and there's just a lot of information to take to sift through and figure out how to make things work. But I think overall it's pretty successful.
And the online format, you said you hadn't taken it before. Had you taken any online classes before?
Yeah, I've taken online classes, but none of them that actually met via Skype or Google Hangout or anything. So this is my first experience with that.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the funny thing about getting me as your online professor. I actually don't know about that other format where the lectures are like YouTube videos or URLs that you somehow watch when you get home and decide to like look at the class. I don't know what discussion boards are. I don't know any of that stuff.
They're a pain.
Yeah, well, I don't even know that, right? It's like there's 2 things in my world that I don't know. I don't know how to work a conference call at my current office, and nor did I know how to do that at Soroki's office. So I've gone like 26 years without learning how to do a conference call. And the second thing is like the traditional online class. I have no idea what that is and what that looks like and how it operates. All I know is what I know, and we've tried to model our class here with you in a way, right, loosely on kind of a traditional studio, right, where you have pinup reviews and desk crits and lectures and so forth. Good point, though. Who else? Thanks. Did we like the critics? Did we not like them? Were there not enough? Were there too many?
No, I think it was overall it was pretty good critics we had. It was actually really helpful to be able to review since it's all videotaped, just to kind of re-listen to.
Yeah.
That I found really helpful because a lot of the time, most of the time you're really tired and you're kind of exhausted but just kind of
you're not really there when you're presenting because you're presenting, right? It's hard to be kind of in 2 places at the same time, and so I love the idea that you can go back and review the discussion and listen to them and maybe take in effect better notes that maybe align with your memory and just things that you forget. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks. Anything else that we need to work on to improve this online experience?
How did this compare with the last semester with it being just a single person doing all of the work, and this is more of a partner-based course?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to remember how many students I had last semester. I think I'm actually not remembering, but I know that when I found out that we had initially 16, Nathan, and then one of them unavoidably had to pull back, I thought that the only way that I could possibly give the more sort of intense or immersive or an intimate kind of reviews was to couple you guys together into teams. And I thought that, you know, when I thought of that, I remembered that that's what that the dean had suggested to me as well, when I kind of raised my eyebrow and said, "Really, Carl? 16 students in a studio? That's that's a lot." And then I remembered that, you know, we do this in an office, right? Offices work in teams. They might be small 2s and 3s in size, and it's kind of an interesting opportunity to simulate what's happening in an office at this level, at this like 4th year, 5th year level. So I don't think it would work very well if it was like 2nd or 3rd year, because I think there's so much to learn just in terms of finding the design voice within yourselves. But I think at this level, and given the maturity of the class because of our graduate students that are here, there's maybe more possibility to make this work. I'm not sure that it worked well. I think it did. I don't have any sort of look backs on your semester and say, oh gosh, I wish I had done that differently. I know that for the kids last semester, the work probably was, and I don't mean to be critical of them, but their project and their effort, their documentation was probably a little thinner in some areas, not as comprehensive and not as in depth. And I think that's in contradistinction to your works this semester, which I think covered a lot more bases because you had a team, right? You had more horsepower that you could then distribute that horsepower, like power to the rear wheels in snow or power to the front wheels in sand, right? You could like distribute that horsepower evenly throughout the terrain and get traction on it and cover that material. So in some ways, the product was stronger because it exhibited or demonstrated more depth this semester. But I think also there's an advantage to doing that work on your own, and that is that while you may not have pressed on it as deeply, you certainly had to cover a lot of territory, and it exposes them to sort of everything. I think that's probably the fairest way to critique it. I mean, at some point though, right, if I have 15 or 16 students in a semester and I only have 8 hours a week to sort of have this contact with them, 8 or even 9 hours a week, it comes out to be very little or unproductive contact time with each of you. So something has to happen to make it more productive. I'm not sure what that is, but I think bundling you in some way made sense, right? Whether in the desk critiques or in the student projects or both. And I think in this semester we did both. What was your sense of it? I mean, I don't know that you know what the work looked like last semester or what it was like, but what was your perspective of a group project, Nathan?
Yeah, you know, it's pretty comparable to an office trying to get a project done, delegating different types of disciplines or work to get done. I would have seen the benefit of doing it myself too, just kind of getting my fingers wet in all the different departments, but it worked well as a partnership. I was just curious how with 2 people or 3 people working on a project, if it really did show that level of progress and detail versus one person getting to make all the decisions without having to get an approval.
I think the other thing that happens too is that as the projects are evolving. There's got to be collaborative conversations that are going on that are, you know, out in the open, right? They're shed from our minds and our drawings and exposed to the other team members or the other team member, and then the work has to be explained. It has to be communicated, and that's always a very important tool to sort of nurture in your own work. You strike me as someone that, because of, and I don't mean this in any other way except in a complimentary way, Nathaniel, but you strike me as a slightly more mature student, right, in terms of your age. And I think it's no surprise, right, that, you know, you could have done this on your own, for example. And maybe if, you know, you had been someone who was on campus and that I had known, then I might have like thought about the sort of possibility in our studio this semester to like partition out one or two non-team projects if for example the students really wanted to do that, but not knowing you very well until today, right? It was hard to sort of forecast what you might have been really capable of doing.
Sure.
Good point. Who else? Thank you.
For the online format, I had a lot of apprehension going into the online classes. The other online classes had been less than impressive content-wise, and I was really apprehensive in going onto a studio-based class. But I've got to admit, like the fact that the online idea kind of eliminated a lot of the logistics that went into typical studio work. Being able to work from anywhere, being able to kind of communicate from anywhere, and not needing to print something each particular time helped out a lot, I think. Gave us more time to work on our stuff and then present. I don't know if you can hear someone screaming in the background, but
yeah, hopefully it's a peacock and not a young person.
So that's kind of my comments about the overall studio.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I had never really thought about the convenience, if you will, if that's a way to characterize it for you. It is clearly a convenience for me, right? Because my beagles are here. I just had a dinner, right, that my wife, you know, prepared for me. There's going to be a beer like the minute I turn the computer off, right, waiting for me in the fridge. And in like 3 minutes, I can be out of this necktie and watching, you know, CNN or NCIS, or I can go to bed and not have to clean the windows off after a snowfall or drive home in the dark, you know, at 10 o'clock at night. So there is something sort of attractive to the convenience factor of the online studio. And I think in many ways, I've argued that it's actually a superior environment, but I think it has to be innovated upon every semester. And I'm not sure that I'm doing that well enough personally, but I think the online thing is certainly viable. And I think the online studio is one that is perhaps a refreshing alternative. And given that we can bring in critics, Sarah was not able to join us from Y out in Los Angeles, but she was prepared to be here. Given that we can have critics in from anywhere and be right there with you and know as much about your work as anyone else does through this online portal, that's pretty interesting too. So the future of this kind of format, you know, is really, it's really compelling to me. And when I started to look at, like, you know, Frank Gehry giving online classes, I'm like, pshaw, you know, we've already been doing this for 8 years, you know. So, but I just think it is sort of an unusual format, and I'm glad you all tried it. I'm glad you had sort of faith in the college to explore it and enroll in it, and I'm glad that you stuck with it. Thanks. Anyone else? Dan, would you like to talk a little bit about your impressions? This was your debutante ball too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a surprise.
Tell us about that.
I get this email that says, "Oh, by the way, it's online." Said, "Oh, really? Thanks for letting me know."
I remember, Dan, I'm going to pick on you and tease you a little bit, because I remember at the very, very beginning, like in December, when we were kind of hatching this. I mean, honestly, I was still teaching the other semester when you were like, Mark, what room are you going to be reserving for our online studio? And I'm kind of like, Dan, we do this online. It means that you can do it from your family room. You can do it from your office. I know, but don't we need to reserve a room? I'm like, no, Dan, we don't need to do the room thing. So you were clearly kind of like, what is going on here? This is all news to me.
So I'll just take about 10 minutes to run through a few things, and then I've got some closing thoughts about what some of you might want to think about as you move forward with your career. I know Professor Farlow is going to give the commencement award address this year. Is that right, on Saturday?
Yeah. No, Friday night. I think it's Friday night, the honors convocation.
So I've been to those before. He's one of the best speakers we have. So unless he's going to give you the advanced version of it, come on Friday. For those of you that are in commencement. So yeah, just to give you a few thoughts. Actually, I did think that the online course went better in some cases, in some areas, than I thought it would, and I think predominantly because of Google Hangout. Because to do this as an email exchange and watching lectures online, I thought would have been really difficult and not really very productive. So I think Google Hangout's really done quite well. And that's really helped a lot. Just to let you know, what we do, look at this course every year. We do course assessment. I'm the department's representative for assessment, and we've been assessing comp design for the last 2 years. We'll be assessing it this year. So in that, I would encourage you to keep in mind that it's important for you to fill out your course evaluation forms, not just for this class, but for every class. I was department chair, interim chair for about 3 years, 4 years, and I can tell you this, and this is the truth, people read them. Second, if you have a low survey response rate, the credibility goes down with respect to the content. So when 10% of the people fill it out, and if it says the professor's terrible and the course is lousy, that doesn't carry much weight. And when they say the professor's great and the course is wonderful, that also doesn't carry much weight. So we are always shooting for 50 to 60% particular response rate, particularly for low and smaller size courses. So please fill them out. People do read them. They do pay attention. With assessment, we are talking about how is this class formatted? Is it the correct format? And I'm not saying that it is at this present time. I think there are other models, and hopefully we'll be able to get to discussion with the administration about moving in that direction. It is unfortunate that some of the course enrollment sizes have increased. That's really an administrative concern. My on-ground class had 22 students. That was not planned. And I'm hoping that in the future, some of these numbers will get back to normative levels, but we'll have to see, I guess. In terms of content issues, we do look at issues like NAAB exam criteria or accreditation criteria. We look at the ARE exam, and we try to ask questions about how we can help prepare students for that sort of experience. So we are thinking of that. We're aware of that. And we try to simulate some of the knowledge that you need to have and the experiences that would be productive for you when you work in firms. So I think that's on the table for both of us. Professor Farlow and I, before the term started, had a chance to exchange information and dialogue about what our respective roles would be. And so we talked about, okay, Dan can evaluate or address these issues, and Professor Farlow, Mark, will address these issues. And in the case of design questions, basically the understanding was for me that I would defer to Professor Farlow if I made a suggestion to you, which I think worked fairly well. Also, that I would make as much of the time available during the studio that I could, even though I'm only really supposed to be on for about an hour a week. So I think hopefully that helped to hear the dialogue you had with Professor Farlow, so I knew what was going on and he knew what I was saying at the same time. So hopefully that smoothed things out a bit. Some things I'd let you know as we move to the new NAAB criteria, and as I look at the new ARE exam, there's been a shift. And I know sometimes you hear about people talking about drawing and how well you document and draw something. Well, that's not enough. What the ARE exam and the NAB accreditation issues are, they want to know, how do you think? How do you make decisions? What is your decision process? So it's more than drawing. It's the way in which you're thinking through a problem as you make those decisions that matter. So I know we've tried to put a little bit more emphasis on that. And so keep that in mind. Also in the ARE exam, I know that technical coursework, structures, HVAC, and construction systems students typically score lower than some of the other sections. So please be prepared for that when you take the exam. I will tell you that credentials matter. If you're in any kind of professional field, they matter. So earning this degree, moving on to a master's degree that will allow you to take your licensing exam is an important decision, an important step. You want to take it if you want to be taken seriously and have a career in the field. In addition, you want to think about getting a participation in programs. I think they call it APX today. It used to be the Intern Development Program. Or if you're still at Lawrence Tech, IPAL, where you can work through working in a firm. I think we have at least one person in IPAL here. I believe that's Trevor. So please, if you're not aware of APX, take advantage of that. It allows you to put some of the time that you're serving in an office towards your internship hours for your licensure, eventual licensure. Also, it also allows a firm to, or requires a firm to give you a variety of experiences and not pigeonhole you, so to speak, in just a series of tasks that they ask you to do all the time. And so that's important for your development. So please take a look at that. I think in architecture, it also matters. What also matters is who you work for. So if you can get a position in a well-known firm, please do so. Sometimes they do the most interesting work. You're going to learn a lot in those environments about how high-quality firms work and how they make decisions. And you'll meet the kind of people that can help you in your career later on. So I would suggest looking to those sorts of firms as much as possible. Also, sometimes if you have to move to get the position you want, don't be afraid to move. I've moved and, in my life, and basically I don't regret it. I found the experiences that I needed to take and I was willing to take the risk. If you're going to move, be careful of cost of living differences. I'll just warn you, there are some places where it is very hard to make it if your salaries are low. I would say if you're going to be if you're planning to take the exam for licensure, please take it seriously, form a study team with someone, consider it to be a serious step in the right direction. So please make the best use of your time. Some people have asked me about other credentials like LEED. Yes, I think they're important. Sure, go ahead and pursue them. But I would say your licensure is probably the most significant one to pursue at the next step. Networking is a good thing. Find friends and people that you know that can help you. Maybe find the resources that you need, or maybe could give you a lead, so to speak, to a position opening in a firm. So keep in touch with others and network, so to speak, with one another. I think it's a good opportunity to help you advance in your career. If you can find a firm that pays for college tuition, I don't know how many do today, but there was a period before the recent downturn in 08 and 09 that firms in this area were paying for some tuition costs. I would, again, look for some firms like that. I think maybe at one point Hamilton Anderson may have done that, if I recall. So I think I had students who did have some sort of tuition support. SSOE is another one. I'm not sure about how many others, but usually it's a larger firm that can do that. I would say take your portfolio and your preparations for interviews seriously. They will matter, and people will be judging you as you present yourself. also be expecting things like they might point to a drawing or something that you have in a portfolio and ask you questions about it. So be prepared to have the answers that you need. Be prepared to be able to explain what you've done in that project. So those might come up as well. In terms of the teamwork, you know, it's interesting. This was the first time we've done comp design in a team setting. I think it probably has had mixed results. And I know it's difficult for Professor Farlow to team you because he doesn't know who works well together and all that. So I think overall that's been I think that has been a benefit. I did look at projects from last year to this year, and I would agree with Professor Farlow's assessments. They are better developed overall because of the teamwork efforts. So yes, I see a difference between last year and this year in terms of the overall project efforts. In that respect, though, I know that sometimes you feel that maybe you as Nathaniel alluded to, you want to work on everything, but you can't because you have to share work with a team member. So that's a difficult situation sometimes also to resolve differences in opinion about matters at the same time. And hopefully Professor Farlow or I were helpful in resolving any disputes you may have had between yourselves. Other than that, you know, I wish you all well in your career moving forward. I hope that you'll find the right opportunities for personal and professional growth and development that you need and you deserve. It is a competitive field. So again, do your best in all endeavors that you have. I think Professor Farlow's comments about maturity, I'd probably like to elaborate a little bit on that. What I think maturity means for the most part, or at least what it means for me over time, would be you use how to measure your time more carefully. And you also think that you may need more time to undertake a particular task than you have. And so I would say that maturity generally means budgeting your time and leaving adequate amounts of time for activities that you need to take on. This semester, I'm sure, was extremely difficult for a lot of people. So if you're working 40 hours a week and you're taking this class, now you probably have to have about a 65-hour work week between work and school. And if you're taking another class, then it's now getting to be an 80-hour work week between work and school. So I realize it's difficult, and you certainly have my sympathies in that regard. I worked while going to school at the same time, but certainly not as much as many as you have. So I think that hopefully in the end, because you're working and you're working in firms, I think that it's also going to help you take advantage of the right opportunities when you're in school. So you'll view your coursework that you're undertaking differently. And so I think working in a firm is helpful. And also not just to help you prepare for your license exam, which is important, but also to help you think about the academic experience you're going through in a different way. So I want to thank Professor Farlow for leading this semester and moving this forward. I think that the results turned out better than I thought, and largely because of his efforts and preparation and your dedication.
Thank you, Dan. That was really lovely, and I hope that you all were paying close attention to that. It was a lot of information, a lot of advice, all chunked together in nice bite-sized pieces. I appreciate his preparation for that talk. I'm very appreciative to Dan this semester, as well as Ash last semester, for giving me some room to teach this class with all of you, and in a format that is still, I think, untested to some extent, but for me, it's been kind of an interesting experience. If you can't make it to Friday night's honors convocation, I assure you that almost every one of the points that Professor Farrow just cited are going to be things that I implore all of the graduates with on Friday. So I think you're in good shape whether you go or not, but I would be delighted to see you there. And I do have some remarks that I prepared for Friday, and in addition, I have some remarks that I prepared for you tonight, and I want to go through them with you. It's customary to share some thoughts and reflections on architecture on this the last night of studio. And I've done this every semester. And the remarks tonight will be especially bittersweet for me. This is because, you know, adjunct professors never know when they're going to be invited back to teach. Adjuncts teach because we want to. An adjunct is not teaching because it's a job or a source of income. Yes, it is work, and yes, we do get paid. But honestly, the pay is not the motive, and the work is really more like giving back. Sort of like when you shovel on a regular basis throughout the winter your neighbor's driveway. You may feel the exertion, but you also feel good. And the pay is, well, you know, cookies, right? It's bittersweet this time because I've decided to take time off from teaching. Professor Stevens asked me if I could add my name, if he could add my name to the roster of adjunct faculty for next fall, actually to teach this same class next year, next academic year, which I presume would be with Professor Farrow and Professor Rageb. I thought over my response carefully and made a decision a few weeks ago, and my decision was to pass. My decision was to ask Professor Stevens to remove my name from the teaching roster because, you see, back in March, my company promoted me to the position of principal. It's a marvelous honor, and I'm looking forward to even more responsibilities than those that I carry today. In fact, I can already feel the pressure to be more, to give more, and offer more to everyone in my office. So for now, I'll be focusing on my work and not my teaching. So your class is my last class. I suspect the dean has other ways of having me contributing to the College of Architecture and Design. And as Professor Farrow just mentioned, this Friday night, for example, I'm speaking at the honors convocation for your graduation on Saturday. I do look forward to seeing you there. All of that said, I do still find teaching very exciting. Maybe someday, if the offering is right and the timing is too, I would return. But for now, I'll be on an indefinite sabbatical. My teaching career here at Lawrence Tech really began in 1995. I actually taught the Comp Design Studio. But like today, the projects were big, complex, mixed-use facilities. But my students back then made these 11-inch by 17-inch booklets, and we had an anonymous jury that reviewed their work. There was a lot of good times going through that process. Most of you, of course, were not even born then. My actual teaching career began when I was actually your age. The first studio I taught was a Viscom drawing studio. I was just beginning my graduate studies like many of you are right now at the University of Cincinnati, and that was in 1982. My first architecture studio was offered the following year, and I began teaching it as a professor of architecture at Mississippi State University in 1984. And that's actually where I met Professor Schwartz in 1985. I was only a 27-year-old back then and pretty sure I didn't know a thing, but I loved teaching, and educating the next generation became part of my life from really that point forward. So tonight marks the completion of the 29th architecture studio and independent study class that I've taught here at Lawrence Tech since 2009. I began teaching in our online community in 2010. And that's when the dean told me that I was the first instructor in the country teaching an online graduate architecture studio. Back in 2010, communicating with each other in an online format was rather like two soup cans and a string, but we got through it. And it has, as Professor Farrow just noticed, improved markedly. Google Hangouts has made collaborating with all of you much, much easier. There are actually many more professors teaching live interactive online studios now, And I'm pleased to be someone who actually trains some of them to do that. And since then, the College of Architecture and Design and Lawrence Tech has acknowledged my many teaching sort of efforts with important teaching awards. And I'm very humbled by all of that. But the real reward of teaching is, well, teaching. And I've thoroughly enjoyed teaching with you, working with each of your teams. You've done exceptional work and have made an important step toward concretizing your own academic careers. As you know, the Comp Design Studio is, for our undergraduates, the terminal studio experience. That is to say, it is your final studio as an undergraduate. This is why it's an important one. The college and the NAAB that Professor Farrow just remarked about sets extremely high standards for your performance in our studio. Tonight, you may be a little numb, a little dizzy, a little tired after completing the studio and the experience that comes along with it. While that was not the point, it is a natural byproduct. What was the point? Well, as your instructor, the point was to acquaint you with the immersive and concentrated nature of a project that you will find working on in an office. Maybe the office you're working in now, maybe if you work with me at Hamilton Anderson. Your project this semester literally comes off the boards from Hamilton Anderson. The site, the program, the context, even the design principle. I was also concerned about creating an experience unlike any other that you might have had here at Lawrence Tech. To be sure the online experience was a novel one, novel enough. Many of you, like Richard or like Alec had said earlier tonight, had never experienced anything like this until now. Cody admitted that he was really reluctant to even enroll in it. And I'm not really sure what you think about what we did together through this online portal this semester. You can certainly weigh in on the course evaluation, which I really need you to participate in. But I happen to think this is a wonderful way to link people to places they might never see or know. I think it's an exceptional way to link you to me. I think it happens to be one of the most innovative experiences one can have today in sharing design thoughts and design outcomes. That's why I like teaching in this format. We have truly elevated the discourse of teaching architecture and learning it. And the approach I take is, after all, pretty predictable in this class. You get a project brief with programs, areas, a site plan, and you're off. You're all asked to design a building that meets this program and fits its context. Sounds just like last semester's studio project, right? Just like most of the studios I've taught since 1982. But wait, when you consider what, for instance, Fodger and Nora and Hong did, well, I think that's pretty nifty because they live in different cities, right? Nathan and Jess never even saw the site. They're not even from the same states, right? That's extraordinary. And this all happens because of this online portal. And you were really an important part of that process. I can make the case, I believe, that an online studio is in a way better as a learning, in terms of learning about design than maybe a bricks and mortar studio. Creating an experience unlike any other that you might have had here at Lawrence Tech also meant focusing on something important and authentic, and that is housing. The issue of housing, I think, is a vexing one. No longer does it seem fair that fair housing, even affordable housing, will be available for people like me, inevitably people like you. It is quite likely that you will never be able to own your own home, for example. The cost of housing is exorbitant, and so is the money to mortgage a home. Conflate personal debt, which could include credit cards and student loan, with the minimum down payment, usually 20%, to purchase a house. We are actually rendering ownership to only the elite or the wealthy. And the appetite to live in denser, multifamily scenarios is low because the American dream has always been the single family home. But multifamily housing, even missing middle housing, may require a closer look. Renting versus owning may have a larger appeal, especially if the tax laws change to eliminate the write-off of mortgage interest payments, which is already beginning to happen now. Our studio this semester touched on these vexing issues, but you had so many other important issues to juggle. And I don't regret that we only made a light touch on this issue of housing, because these other issues, I think, are also very, very important.
I'm not looking to spend 40.
But mark my words, housing will be a front and center issue in your architectural practice. It has to be. Architects may be, no, I think they should be the leaders in this conversation. Our Comp Design Studio experience confronted some of these design questions, I think, admirably. So thank you for allowing me to take you there this semester. Let me draw all of this to a close by mentioning two observations. One is that if you ever need advice or help from this point forward, just ask me. Whether it's reviewing your resume or your portfolio, getting advice on a career move, whatever it is, just ask me. I'll be available to you. I've helped over 200 students with career advice over the last 10 years, and I look forward to watching yours advance as well. You know how to find me. The profession of architecture, as Professor Farrow was alluding to, is not an easy one. Things will not get easier for you once you graduate Saturday. In fact, they'll actually get harder. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to juggle more things simultaneously. You'll have to learn more things more quickly. But it's a marvelous profession. It's a stimulating one. It's invigorating and gratifying. It's dynamic, it's progressive, and it's essential. And it's been all of these things for me, and I hope you get to experience all of these things in your own career. The other thing I want to say, and this is an unfiltered opinion, no one asked me about this, but I feel like you've paid a lot of money, so you should have my opinion. And this opinion may not align with your own, but I think it aligns with Professor Farrow's, because I just heard him say it a moment ago. But the second observation is, if you're going to graduate school here or even somewhere else next semester, congratulations and good luck. I'm sure you're going to do well and you'll be successful in your projects. If you're not going to graduate school because you think you need a year off, then I would ask you to return to school as soon as possible. Waiting is counterproductive because the profession needs you in it now. And I can make all sorts of points about why you should not wait, because tuition is going to cost more. It's going to be harder to return to school after a year off because you're going to be used to a revenue stream. It's going to be harder to leave work to return to school. I can go on and on and on. The iron is hot. The fire is hot. Take advantage of those two conditions now, because you won't regret it. I did it that way, and I'm encouraging you to do it that way. And then finally, I want to wish you all, I want to wish for you to have a successful career in architecture in whatever form it takes. It's an amazing profession. You may end up practicing in it. You may not, but your training as an architect and the exposure that you've had to an amazing faculty, Professor Farrow and Professor Rageb this year, for me included, is what it's going to take to help you do well at whatever you choose to do. So I want to wish you good luck, and thank you for your time this semester. Okay, so let's go into the conversations that we need to have. I know Trevor and Trevor wanted to go later, so we'll work with him last, if that's okay, Alec. Yep. And then who wants to go first?
Me and Richard can.
Cool. Okay, go ahead. And then the rest of you can just sort of hang with the volume really low, and we're going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes with each of you, and we'll go from there, all right? Okay, let's see. There's Richard. Hey, Richard. Hey, Cody.
Hello.
So, any questions or concerns?
No questions or concerns really at this point about the project. The critiquers, I felt like during the process it was so short and condensed, and we went through so much material that there was an overloading of information, and it
for them.
Yeah, and I think it kind of reduced any kind of feedback that we might have been able to get from who you brought in to look at our work. Now, the people you did bring in did say a few things that we were able to take to heart, I suppose. But I do think the amount of information and the amount of time was too small. And I don't think that there's anything we can really do about that other than bring in more time.
Well, I think something happened this year. And if I were to teach this class again next year and we did the group projects, I might give the presentations a longer time period, not necessarily to present it, but to unpack it. So like instead of, and actually I gave everyone 11 minutes, not 10. But I might give each group and the critics, especially if we have a lot of critics, I might suggest that we give them more time, just because of the sort of nature of the and the intensity of the information. You know, after your reviews on Thursday night, on Tuesday night, after your reviews on Tuesday night, I actually went upstairs for another review, and it was one of the ADS2 studios, and I walked in on the review. I was there for an hour, and they had like 6 or 8 faculty members there, and it was this lovely, meandering, graduate level conversation that there was even room and time for me to weigh in on it very briefly. But I was like, wow, that's kind of a different clip, right? That's kind of a different pace than the pacey pace we kept you guys to. So I think there's maybe a way, especially if we do the group projects, where we can accommodate all 15 or 16 students. If we work in teams, if we critique in teams, and we take full advantage of like a 3.5 hour session, I think that, you know, we could spend more time with each of you. But I think that's kind of a hard lesson for you guys this, this semester. But if I was going to return, I would improve it that way, perhaps.
Well, I want you to keep in mind that up until this year, we were only given 1 day for final reviews.
Yeah, I guess, you know,
we actually doubled it to 2 days now.
Yeah. So I guess that's the other thing, right? That was the reviews always happened for my studio guys on Saturday morning. A hard start at 8:30 a.m. and we finished at 1. And that was with 8 or 9 or even at one point 11 students. And when we got like 15 this semester, 16 initially, I kind of crapped my pants. I thought, how are we going to do this? I mean, I wasn't worried necessarily about, right, how are we going to get through the desk grids, because I had absolutely no idea how that was going to work. But I began to think about what my critics were going to be able to do and how I was going to regale them to be there for, 5 hours on a Saturday morning when they've got lives and families and, they're looking at their watch to get out of my critique on a Saturday morning. So when the convenience of having the critiques spread over 2 nights was popped up in one of the dean's emails in December, I thought, oh, let's work with this. Let's try to make this, easier for everyone. I can bring in more critics. They don't have to stay the whole time. And, yeah, that's a really good point, Dan.
And I guess that was, it sounds like a critique for me. And it's one critique about the class that I would like to bring up, but the rest of the class was fantastic. The organization of everything, the response rate from both you and Professor Farrell was phenomenal. If we had questions, we got them answered right away. And we really, really, really appreciated that. We know both of you were super busy. And that it was fantastic.
Well, good, and I hope that you have that experience with everyone else that you have as faculty. I think that would be first rate. Then I appreciate hearing that. So, I mean, as far as your project goes, I think I said some things to you in the parking lot after. I don't think I necessarily shared those with Richard because he wasn't there. So maybe Cody, you related them to him. But I really do appreciate that. You know, you took on all the extra options that you did. I'm looking at some numbers over here. I do appreciate that the work continued to evolve over the last 3 or 4 weeks of the semester, and that you took things to a higher level. And I also appreciated the new work, the new plates that we saw that we had never seen until last Thursday night. So keeping the sort of foot on the pedal and not easing off, not putting your foot over the brake and sort of tapping the brake lights a little bit. I think that was a really smart strategic move for both of you. It just goes to show that you can continue to work on a project to refine it and evolve it, even if the bulk of the sort of required course content, or in the case of an office, even if the design has been matured to the level that you all feel that should be at, there's still ways to tweak it, to tween it, and to refine it. And I think you guys realize that. The other thing, I said this really early on, and I don't think I repeated it, but it was really kind of interesting, or it was notable that you guys both had this agenda that you brought to the studio, that you brought to your work, that you were going to design to a certain sort of LEED platinum level, that you were going to make sure that the building you did for us, whether we needed it to be at that level or whether we were even interested, we certainly were, but right, but like whether the faculty were interested in it or not, you brought an agenda to your work. I think this is a really important distinction in your work as emerging architects from, say, sort of traditional or typical or conventional undergraduate level work. It is the thing, though, and this is why I'm talking about it, it is the thing, though, that you do need to bring to your own graduate work. You have to bring an agenda to your own work as graduate students. You have to have an intention that goes beyond simply designing, a bank or a country club or whatever your thesis might be about. There has to be a subtext or a motive for your work that you test, that you research, that you in fact become a master of. And you guys performed at a level that was at graduate level in many ways, but mostly because you came with bullets in your belt, and you came ready to use that ammunition for your work this semester. And your work was actually better because it had this agenda, right? This sort of professional, personal research agenda. So I'm encouraging you to. I want you to hear that again. I want you to hear that last, and I want you to hear it last because I want to suggest that you carry it forward in your graduate work, hopefully next semester, because really that's how the Advanced Design Studios work. Just to shed some light, right? When I teach the Advanced Design Studio, I have a very loose framework, even looser than Scott Shaw or Aaron Jones, who I adore, right? And I do not have a site. I do not have a program, and because these are all the things that I ask the students to procure, right, and create and research. So really, the burden shifts completely to your shoulders as graduate students in our advanced design studios. I believe for most of our professors, certainly for me, and to your shoulders, right? It shifts from mine to yours. I don't give you the program. I don't give you the site. I don't give you the areas. I don't give you the dates, right? We don't give you any of that stuff. Where does that come from? It's going to have to come from you. You guys are uniquely sort of qualified to think about that in your own work. But I'm also saying this to anyone else that might be eavesdropping and might be listening. And I suspect if Nathan's hanging around, having been through critical practice, he's going to validate what I'm saying. He hears it and he will concur. But it does shift up to your shoulders, and I think you guys are prepared for that. And he's nodding yes. Dan, do you have anything that you'd like to contribute to Richard's and Cody's?
We've had some email exchanges recently.
Good.
You've seen them. Did you have space to pin up today, Cody?
Yes, I got them all pinned up today.
Okay. Well, you saw my recent comments, and so please consider them. And congratulations on this term.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm definitely going to pursue the Cody competition.
Excellent.
Not because his name's Cody either. I know it's spelled differently.
It'll probably come out, I'm going to say, maybe towards September or October. Keep an eye out for it. You need to let me know so I can register you.
Okay.
And then basically, as I said before, the format has always been that 20 by 24 boards. But you do have to watch what their emphasis is, but I think you're on track for the right emphasis. But I don't think that winners that I sent you this year, have anything over your project. So I think you're competitive. So go for it.
Thank you.
Great. Richard, anything from you?
Not really.
That's okay. Good. Well, I've enjoyed working with both of you this semester, and I'm glad that you guys paired up as a team. You're actually a really strong team, and I did mean what I said the other day about how sometimes these sort of firm partnerships, right, form early, right, in one's career, and I think I just have this hunch that you guys would be a terrific office together. In fact, I just about 5 weeks ago, I nominated a young couple for the Distinguished Architecture Alumni Award for the 2018 category, and these are two people that were at Lawrence Tech together. They took all their studios together. They've worked in the same offices together. And when they like lecture, and you can see them on YouTube, for example, when they lecture, they stand at the podium together. I mean, it's like they're kind of inseparable. I don't think you guys are like that close, but I do sense, right, a rapport, a design rapport, a professional rapport that is maybe worth taking a closer look at. So I would keep that in mind, Richard and Cody.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Have a good summer, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
too.
Best of luck. Okay, who's next?
I'm happy to go next. I know Jess is still at work, so I don't know.
Can we wait then?
Yeah, I can try and text him again.
Yeah, is Caitlin and Casey here?
I'm here.
Caitlin?
She's on muted. Mark, did you mute him?
I don't know if I can. I can't change her.
I can text her.
It must have been her. Muted herself.
Oh, and now she's
We
out.
distracted. And so we have Nora. Where's Fajr?
He's not a town.
Oh, he's in Morocco.
He may have difficulty getting access.
Mark, John and I could go next.
Oh yeah, right. Let's do that. Sorry. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Okay. So Nora, we'll get back to you guys in a second. Sorry. Okay. So any sort of concerns or questions, John and Stefan?
No, I think I'm good on my end.
Yeah, same. I think.
Yeah, you guys took on 5 extra points for the options and had a really, really strong showing for this benchmark, which is a really important benchmark. So I feel pretty confident in how you guys will end up this semester. And I know we had somewhat of a sort of a shaky start at the beginning, but I think, you know, like with Richard and Cody, right? This partnership forged itself into something that got some traction and produced some really high quality work. So I want to commend both of you guys for seeing that bigger picture, right? And maintaining pressure on yourselves individually and as a group to move the work, to advance the work forward. I also appreciated that you know, you have this kind of unique relationship with Professor Farrow that you know you included me in on. So I was really glad to see that sort of being maintained right throughout the course of this semester. Plus, I appreciated, you know, having the sort of after hours or weekend sort of pin-up conversations with you guys. I think, you know, not everything can happen during the 4 or so hours that we're together in class, right? Sometimes we just have to like work around a schedule. I was glad that you took the initiative over the Hell Week, right, to do that. So I would encourage you to continue being that way as you move into graduate school, not and as you evolve as a practitioner, right? In the offices that you are in now, or where you work in the future. So that kind of eagerness, that kind of hunger to have things validated, or just to have an opportunity to get feedback, is a really admirable quality. It's something we look for in the people that we're trying to recruit, because we want to have people that, you know, kind of show that they're enjoying or interested and eager to learn more about what they're doing, not just sort of pushing logs down the stream, right? You know, that's not inspiring work, right? So I appreciated that aspect of with you guys.
So I have a question for you. And I think that, you know, of the teams and of the individuals in the group, it's clearly in my mind, the 2 of you were people that I knew were working in firms, because I could tell the way you addressed issues, the way your work process was. I could see that experience coming forward. But both of you, I believe, am I mistaken, do you come from St. Clair?
No, I'm from Toronto, from George Brown.
Okay. So but John, you're St. Clair, right?
Yep.
Well, I would ask you if maybe we could just compare notes on this. How well prepared do you think you were for this experience? Do you think your prior coursework put you in the right direction, or maybe not? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think St. Clair very much prepared me for this course, particularly because there was a lot of emphasis on sort of the complete package of the project: structural, mechanical, electrical, everything. And in St. Clair, there was a strong, you know, emphasis on that with different courses. So I think definitely. And then also work experience after that prepared me quite a bit. I'm not. I imagine Stefan's.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't have an issue with that. The working drawing phase was for me, and the design it had to get done, and we were on a time crunch, and with my scheduling, it had to work, and we had to hammer it out. So
sure. Yeah, I think your the background from both of you as it relates to your own sort of undergraduate experiences, your Canadian undergraduate experiences was really it must have been top drawer, because I think you guys were uniquely qualified and prepared for the rigors, right? And the pace of a studio like this that talked about sort of systems integration as robustly as we needed you to. So, and I have found this to be traditionally the case with the Canadian students, and I'm inferring from you, Dan, that you're sort of sensing that as well.
I thought that what John's comments were right what I would have expected. I've been to St. Clair. I knew Ken Acton years ago, and how students were prepared there. So I'm not surprised by John's comments. They're pretty much in line with what I would have thought. I do think also both of you are to be commended for some high quality work in the lab area. Also, I think your documentation, which really went through very thoroughly and explained every aspect of the work being presented. You had probably the most amount of text-based or narrative material there, but in the end, it's necessary to explain your work. And so I know you don't have a chance to obviously read all of it, but remember, you do produce a document, and there will be people that will. I appreciated that level of preparation and the smooth flow and delivery that you had in your presentation as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about your next steps, John.
Just right now, just continue with undergraduate. I've got a couple more courses at LTU, and then masters. The goal is to get licensed. So
yeah, you definitely need to do that. So the master's program is maybe not till the fall of 18 or fall of 19, maybe the summer of 19.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah, fall or spring. Yeah, it's gonna be. I just gotta kind of take it
grind through some other things, right? Push a few more logs down the river.
Well, hopefully not.
And Stefan, remind me where you are. You're taking the critical practice this summer and one of the research methods class, correct?
Yes, I'm just going with the master's program.
Great.
So one step at a.
Right, and so you'll do that in the sort of minimum pace, right? That it will take, right?
I'm looking at minimum 10 credits per semester.
Gotcha.
So hopefully I'll end up even sooner than the full year.
That'll be good. Good for you. Excellent. Well, I will be on campus, not at the first session of critical practice, but at the second one in June, so that I can meet Nora, and because I think she's taking critical practice, and so I can meet a few of the people that I've not met in person. So I'm looking forward to catching up on your work then.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark and Dan. I want to just say I appreciate all the comments and remarks and critiques along the way, and the emails back and forth as well.
Sure, of course.
I think it's going to take a week to relax here, and then start to digest everything I've learned along the way here over the course of the semester. One thing that I'm taking away right now, Mark, is all the linguistic, not tongue twisters, but linguistic ways you can put things. So concretizing is something you said today. And then sophisticated frugality is something I'm going to be using for the rest of my career, I think. So I want to say I appreciate that as well.
Between Mark Farlow and Ralph Nelson, they're going to have their own section of Webster's pretty soon. That's all I can tell you. They missed one word a week, I'm pretty sure.
That was brilliant. That made my day.
Well,
I might go get that beer sooner. Thank you, John. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Well, thank you both, and it was a pleasure.
Likewise, it was mine. Thank you. You guys have a good summer.
Take care.
Okay, let's see. So we know that Hung is here, and we know that Nora is here. Why don't we go to that? But we know that Fajer is away, so he'll have to maybe weigh in on this conversation sort of posthumously, right? After this class is put to rest. So maybe he'll look at this YouTube page a little bit later. So I'm just looking at some of the numbers. You guys really tried to take on as many of the sort of extra options as you could. And so I appreciated that. And you guys kind of moved the needle up a little bit on this benchmark. So I want to congratulate you on all of that. I do think that your group is the unique one, right? Because there were 3 of you in it. So I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about maybe the strengths or the weaknesses of a group of 3 when everyone else was in a group of 2.
No, I'll let you talk first.
Well, one of the right off the bat, I can tell you is the time zone. I was at a different time zone from Fajer and Hong, so that was a struggle. I guess kind of finding a schedule that worked for all 3 of us, and the other was kind of figuring out who's doing what and who's going to take the task and who's going to take the initiative of completing something that was required for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the other main ones, and the other time management. It was difficult, kind of getting. The more people you have, the more time management you risk. So
well, the more people you have, the more time you spend organizing time.
That's right. And that was a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the first point for a second. You're 2 hours behind us, right? So when Hung's going to bed, you still got 2 more hours of like high productivity, and Hung and Fajer, their eyes are starting to fall, shut closed, correct?
That's correct.
So maybe when Nathaniel and I were talking a moment ago, maybe this is an instance when we have these extreme time zones. Like I appreciate your grief. I'm just going to say that I appreciate this problem. I didn't think much of it, but I appreciate it now more than ever. So there's that. The second thing is maybe, if I were to teach this again and we had these extreme time zones, like 2 hours or more, then maybe the goal would be to group team members that had similar time zones together so that they could be as productive as is possible. Or, and I think you agree with that, Nora, or maybe you should have done this project on your own and not been teamed. Did that occur to you at some point?
Well, it kind of worked for me because I was a morning person. So for me, if they wanted to meet at 9, I was okay. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I was a morning person, so it worked best.
Yeah.
And I didn't find that much of a problem. It was more the scheduling as far as what the time zone that I get out of work from the time zone they get out of work. It was more of that. I guess real life scenario type.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing is that this has never been a problem before, and I've never done team projects in my online environments before. So I admit that we might have stumbled a little bit. I might have stumbled a little bit on this, but I think you guys did a pretty good job of getting together, and I saw I do see improvement. You guys are actually, you guys have one of, you know, the biggest ranges of scores, right? From one end to the other in terms of that spectrum. So you guys have the biggest growth of improvement over the course of the semester. So I think you did find your rhythm. You guys did find your pace. You did find ways to divide and conquer the tasks. But I think you're right. When you have a group of 3, there's got to be someone that manages the time of other people's time. And then you blend that with a time zone gap of 2 hours. That's a perfect storm for a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hong, do you have any observations about all this?
Yeah, so in our group, we made Nora the boss, so whatever she's saying, we do. So that helped with managing stuff. Me and Farji just, whatever Farji, Nora said, you do this, you do that. We did it, send it to her, because she's the one who also organizing the presentation. So everything that we do, or we have to change a little bit, she'll have to go back and then change the whole presentation accordingly. So we really do appreciate Nora for that, sticking out for the other 2 guys. That's the only girl in the group to be taking that responsibility into herself.
You know, and that's kind of something you do learn in an office, right? The idea of like, okay, I may be a really good designer, but given the nature of this particular project, maybe my role should be limited to this kind of design outcome, and let other people take these other things because they're going to be faster or better, or they just have said they're more interested in it, and you defer to that, right? You step aside and let them own that, and I think that's something that is what you would experience in an office.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple of issues with teams, and I'll just sort of share them with you.
Go ahead.
One of them, I've had discussions with Ed Orlowski over the years, and we were doing what used to be an elective studio called the Sustainability Studio, and we'd have teams of 2, and then sometimes we'd have an even number of students. We'd have a team of 3, and both of us had somewhat similar experiences. And I'm not going to ask you if this happened here or not, but it seemed like there was this what we would call 2 against 1. Or person out scenario that sometimes happened in the
like on Survivor, right?
Yeah. So hopefully that wasn't the case for you. On the serious side of that, which that's a serious issue in a way too, is also in core or required classes, we want to make sure everyone essentially has similar exposure to content and outcome.
Yeah.
So while you want to delegate responsibilities throughout the team, and that makes sense to be expedient, and because if you're tripping over each other all the time, you can't get much done. So you regulate, someone will take that and someone will take that. But the downside of this, which will be a discussion with the chair probably next semester, is how do we, if we're going to do a team situation, how do we make sure that everyone has a set of experiences that essentially ensures that they're getting the
same learning curve.
Yeah, well, the same content, right?
And that we're asking you to demonstrate competencies in all these areas.
Yeah.
And I think Nathaniel kind of hit a little bit on it, in a sense. He was saying, well, I'd like to do this and I'd like to do that, but sometimes you sort it out. And that is a serious issue and a dilemma. So
we really don't have any problem with who want to do what. I think we divided it pretty equally, even though if someone's doing this part and they don't understand something, the other 2 would jump in and give input into that problem. There wasn't any 2 versus 1 or anything like that in our team. Everybody was easygoing with each other. We discuss everything.
No, and I think that hits upon one of the advantages of teams, in a sense that you can teach each other.
Right. Yeah, we definitely did taught each other a lot. Each brought something to the table that the other 2 didn't know or didn't have that experience.
Right. So, Hong, you're not going to grad school next fall. Is that correct? Do I remember that correctly? So you were the reason why I sort of mentioned that again tonight. I really do want to see you continue on, and I appreciate why that may be challenging for you personally, but I do want to like wag my finger at you to keep the momentum going for you. And if there's anything I can do to do that or help you do that, let me know. I just don't want to let the sort of engine get too cold, right? And create a rough start for you when you do return.
I understand.
I think also the thing that I would want you to do while you're not taking classes is to continue to look at your portfolio, maybe create a website and look at your resume and make sure that these documents are as good as they can be in preparation for when you do decide to return. And ultimately, if you're hearing all of this and you're saying, gosh, I wish I just told Farlow that I'm not going to become an architect and I'm not going to grad school ever, because this is just going on and on and on, and he's not going to stop. I want you to know that I think that's okay too, right? Because there's lots of ways, right, that I think you can find useful. Lots of ways that you can use this excellent experience, this excellent education to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Sure. Nora, I'm going to meet you in June.
Yes. I'm excited.
Good. And are you taking other classes like Stefan is over the summer?
Actually, I'll be taking both. The same ones that he'll be taking, the research methods and the summer critical practice.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good. One final thing, because you guys are my sort of international dream team, I'm picking on you guys now. All right. Because you guys have this wonderful sort of cultural background, which I really do appreciate. There remain still some correction opportunities, spelling errors on your plates still. So either you take your plates to your favorite like high school English teacher, or you ask one of us to red mark them with a Flair pen and we scan it and send it back, and then you correct it. Whatever that is, please do that as soon as possible, because I don't want the document as it is today to be finished until you go through this sort of scouring, like this editing scouring period. I know that's irritating for both of you guys, but it's really, really important. I want your work to be seen in a light that we can't dim just because you've misspelled basic words. And if you go through this and correct everything accordingly, the document will appear much stronger and certainly include any other sort of written comments that Professor Farrow may have offered between the last review and now. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else, Dan?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nora. Good luck this summer. I'll see you in June.
Thank you.
And Hong, if you want me to look at the resume and portfolio anytime,
Definitely, I'll send you.
even after the summer, like into the fall, I'm happy to do that as well. I am not gonna ever be able to outdo your bright pleather white high tops, but I'll try to definitely dress half as good as you.
All right.
All right. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Let's see. Caitlin and Casey, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Caitlin.
Let me text her. Oh,
She's
unless
here.
she's here.
Hello?
Can we turn our cameras on?
Oh, yeah. God.
So
sorry. I'm on my phone right now.
Lots of echo. There you are. So I guess I'm going to hear myself talk. That's going to be a problem.
Is that me or is it her?
I don't know. It shouldn't be either of you, right? Because everyone else is on.
I don't hear an echo, so.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, the thing I'd like to say to you both is that you guys really had a solid kind of semester, right? Your grades improved over the course of the semester. Your work got more thorough. It got better over the course of the semester. Dog time here. And I feel like the start was a little rocky at first, but the improvement was notable. And I'm wondering what you think was the thing that your successes are attributed to. Can you maybe comment on how you were able to continue to do well over the course of the semester while the stakes got higher?
For me, I think when we first started, we tried, since neither of us live on campus, we tried doing the Google Hangouts and finding, like, I know Caitlin works 3 jobs and I work 2 jobs, and then I'm 15 credits. I don't know what she's at, but we, near the end or near the midpoint, I think we decided we just need to power through the scheduling differences, and we started meeting in person. And I think that helped out a lot more than the Google Hangouts did for us.
When did that happen in the semester, Casey?
I think right before benchmark 2.
Yeah. 2 jobs and 3 jobs. Caitlin.
Yeah.
3 jobs. And you also had 2 studios. Are you going to be Yeah, are you going to be, because I was at your other studio review. Are you going to be like at the counseling table next year telling students to do exactly what you did?
No, because I was taking 17 credits with the 3 jobs, and it's insane.
Yeah,
so
17
I'm surprised.
credits. And also the 2 studios. I'm not sure how that happened administratively, but I think you guys did power through it. But here's the thing, I at some point, and I know you guys are almost done with school, so this I'm kind of maybe just peeing in the wind here, but like I feel like at some point it's not really possible to do really like excellent work, is it, when you have all of these other like things that are weighing you down, all of these other commitments? You guys are living a life of the conundrum, right? Like you need to go to school to maintain your scholarships, maybe, and you need to work to pay for the things that the scholarships can't pay for or don't pay for. And you need to take all these classes because you want to finish by a certain time, but the classes are only offered at a time when you end up having to take 2 studios simultaneously. And at some point, something has to give, right? So I'm wondering, did you get to that point this semester, and would you ever do anything like this again, Caitlin?
Yeah, I mean, I think my non-studio classes definitely suffered much more, so I would not do that again, because I think more of my effort was definitely put into making sure my studios were
set.
Can I ask Casey and Caitlin, how many hours a week did you work?
Sorry, go ahead.
One job, it's on campus, so it's 20, and then the other is around 15, 16.
Caitlin?
Mine are similar. One is about 25, and the other one is about 20, and then the last one's like 6 to 8, depending.
So do I understand you're working 50 hours a week?
Almost, yeah.
With 2 studios and 17 credits, is that right? Now, I'm not going to ask you for a name here, but I want to know, did you review this with your academic advisor?
Yeah.
And Casey, did you review this with your academic advisor?
I did not talk to my
Don't tell me who they are. I'm just asking.
It almost lived up, but no, I didn't talk to him about my work.
Okay, and so in your case, Caitlin, did that person say that? Did he have any comments to you about that?
They said it'd be difficult, but it could be done. So.
I would have qualified that it could be done by 1% of the population.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. So I'm sorry, but you really had you were set up for a very difficult term.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm. I did not realize that you all were working more than 2 jobs. I thought I was the only idiot in the room that did that. And you worked 3, and you carried a load that was it's way too much for anyone to carry in their backpack. But you understand my question, right? Like, it's a question of balance and equilibrium, Caitlin and Casey.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, something's got to give, like health, right? Or mental health, which is just as important, or grades, or right? And something has to give. And ultimately, it is indeed impressive that you got through and you did as well as you did. But like, I really wanted more for you guys. So I'm not disappointed, but I want you to know that I feel like for instance, Caitlin and Casey, a lot of our conversations were about the wall sections, right? And I felt like I was sketching clearly. I did notations. I drew things, not necessarily to scale, but relatively to scale. And I felt like, oh, wow, I am just not getting through to these people, despite how legible my sketches and my emails to you are. But now I feel like it's not me at all. It's just kind of your inability to take in all that I'm saying, to think critically about what I'm suggesting, because you've just got so many other bowling pins in the air that you're juggling, and some of them are dropping and hitting you on the head. And you know what I mean? And that's distracting too. So I paid for my own way through college. All of my undergraduate and all of my 5th year at Lawrence Tech, I paid for out of my own pocket. My parents just weren't in a position to subsidize my education. And I think I was convinced, you guys, that I was the only person on the planet that my mom and dad couldn't afford to pay for my education. And I was very crabby about that. I was very upset about that at the time. And I don't know exactly what your circumstances are, and I certainly don't even appreciate how expensive school is today. But I know it's something I wouldn't necessarily afford. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, but at some point you have to ask yourself if what you're doing is even possible, and you need to be of the presence of mind to say, I don't think I can do that. I can do all of this, but not all of that. So I'm just going to have to take longer to go through school, or I'm going to have to sacrifice something, because really these classes, these studio classes, particularly our studio class, which is something I tried to tee up early in the year for you, is a really, really important one. And I think you guys are capable of much, much better work, but it was work that was governed or inhibited by your own commitments, to these other classes and to this other sort of these other work schedules. So that's all sort of water over the dam right now. I don't know. We can't do anything about that, but I do hope that you act on an instinct sooner and say no. Learn to say no when you have to. And I do want you to sort of maybe think about taking some time this summer, if that's even possible, to look at your work, and if there's anything you want to do to improve, like the renderings or build that model or finish the model that you started. I would encourage you to do that, because anything that you do now will help, improve the quality of that package. It was a really solid package. You guys really did power through it, but you guys are really in a different league, and not the league that you showed yourself in this semester. So in a way, I'm disappointed for you. And now that I know about this horror story of commitments that you both have, now I'm kind of like bummed that I didn't know about it sooner, or wasn't maybe more empathetic to your plight, or maybe just more supportive in ways that I could be to help you sort of power through it. But I don't think what you guys did was humanly possible, to be honest with you.
It was a lot of sleepless nights. that happened quite frequently.
Yeah, well, that's not fair to the project, right? It's not fair to your team, and it's not fair to yourselves. But it's a little bit of a problem. So my disappointment is really based on those things, right? Yeah. It's disappointment with a little d, right?
Well,
worse than a big D?
Yeah, go ahead.
I share Professor Farlow's background. My parents could not pay for my college.
Mm-hmm.
So I had worked since I was 16. I worked through college, both undergraduate and graduate. But the times were different. I come from sort of a lower middle income background. And what I did in my life, I will tell you, I don't think could be done today. The circumstances with costs of education, the interest rates on loans, the type of loans that people are getting, the escalation of the cost of college has made what was available to me not available to people who were in a similar situation, in my case, 40 years ago. So I'm certainly empathetic to that. I wish I would have made the world a better place for you if I could have had the position to do so. But what you did undertake was extremely difficult in my view. So.
Yeah, and I hope that in your future studies that you never have to carry that kind of burden again. And I hope that you have an opportunity in your future studies to really see what you guys are capable of. Do you have any other thoughts, Casey or Caitlin?
Well, it's not really pertaining to the project, but I did just want to say that I came into tonight's class, just thinking it was going to be a typical send-off for summer, and it was a little depressing hearing about you, because I have a few friends in ID5, and so they've been asking if they recommend, or if I recommend the online class, and I said if Mark's the professor, 100%.
Thank you.
So you made the struggle bearable. So
thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was just a little depressing to hear, but I'm happy for you, of course, for the promotion.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Casey. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys around,
Yeah.
okay? Good, thanks. Okay, Nathan and Jess, you're here. So you know where we're going, right? we can open up the conversation really to anything that you want to go through. I'll just remember from like the very first benchmark, there was kind of like salt and pepper or oil and vinegar, not like argumentative, just like you got to have oil and vinegar to make a great salad dressing. They just didn't get like shaken up enough initially. They were like still two distinct things. And very, very early on, like around benchmark 1, they still remained somewhat separated, but the team really, the whisk came in and stirred things up, right? And you guys really started to gel as a team. And I just think that's extraordinary because you all don't know Detroit, really Michigan at all. You never saw the site. You never had the privilege, even if you had been here to visit the site. You really relied on sort of the conversations and the imagery of other team members to help you know this place, to understand these issues. And to use Casey's phrase, you powered through it and did really exceptional work despite those odds, right? We just talked to Casey and Caitlin about the sort of odds, right? The odds against them working so much and taking so many classes. Caitlin taking 2 studios at the same time, which is just, you know, with all due respect to Caitlin, nuts, right? And yet you guys did really solid work that started high and got higher and better really as the semester went on. So this is a very interesting team, and I'd maybe invite you both to sort of reflect on this online goofy experiment that you stumbled into. Okay, so Jess and Nathan, can you maybe comment on that?
Yeah, I can elaborate. You know, it is the class. LTU needs to be proud of this class, just from the perspective of trying to enforce all the different disciplines, understanding all the requirements that a building takes. The Ball State never offered a class like this, and it's really good to see and reassuring. Granted, it sucked at the time, but you know, reflecting at it now, you know, it's good to delve into all these different details that you know a building requires. So.
Well, that's interesting to me that BSU does not. So, am I hearing you correctly that BSU does not have a capstone, comprehensive design studio or an integrated design studio?
It's the first semester of the graduate program is a NAB accredited class. So, but when I graduated in 2007, it was a different program than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be a little different, but when I was told I needed to take this class to continue in the master's, they offer it as a first semester graduate level course at Boston.
I understand.
So
okay, that's interesting. Jess, talk a little bit about NJIT and your experiences there as it relates to this.
I think for me, this was definitely a unique experience because as I was leaving my school, they were transitioning to a different program, especially for your 5th year. When I was there at an early stage, it was really about what we did here in this class. But as I was leaving, it was becoming really conceptual. So a lot of the parts what we did in terms of like structure or building systems, that was being taken away, which kind of sucks, especially when you reach that level of where you want to incorporate that into your project.
Mm-hmm.
So literally the last semester, it was just like all conceptual. So coming back to this was definitely amazing because I lost that from not doing it that last semester. So doing it made me feel where I needed to like learn from.
Any observations, Jess, about the this online sort of experience working with a dude from another state, and both of you being in a state that's different than the state that the university is in?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I appreciated from it. I mean, just the online concept is refreshing and new. I had to work my way around it. You know, when you're in studio, it's a whole different lifestyle. So just the studio concept was new, and then working with someone who's completely off somewhere else is even makes it more interesting. Yeah, a little hard, but you learn to adjust to it, and that was really great too.
Okay, good. Good. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I've like I said, I've never done the team project before. I've certainly had students in other time zones, and honestly, I've had one in Portland, one in Anchorage, and one in Hong Kong, and certainly those in like Toronto, so different countries, but never a team project where both students came from different states within the U.S. and different than the state of Michigan. So you guys were kind of exemplary for me, and it was interesting to sort of watch your sort of progress this year. So I appreciate you sort of letting me peek in on you guys, like looking at you guys in the fishbowl and sort of imagining how this, you know, was going along. So I definitely looked at that. Now, Jess, are you taking critical practice this summer?
I don't think so. I need a break from studio and focus on work.
So are you then graduating with an undergraduate with us now?
No.
Where are you in that journey?
I'm pretty much into just graduate. I guess for now would be if I decide to stay here.
You have your undergraduate from NJIT, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually one of the graduate students. I remember now. So you're going to move through our graduate program kind of in fits and stops, or like when you can?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was literally just how my experience, how would it be? So I just wanted to try it out.
Yeah. So this is really your first class, your first experience in this, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jess, Nathan, is it your first experience in one of our classes aside from critical practice?
No, so I've already done all the research methodology, the environmental class, and one of the side credits. So,
but you've not taken ADS yet.
No.
And you've taken everything except critical practice in the online portal, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have that range difference too. Dan, do you have anything that you'd like to offer up to both Jess and Nathaniel?
Not off the cuff, except you know, Jess, how many hours a week are you working this semester?
I'm sorry?
How many hours a week did you work this semester?
At work, like full time? I work 40 hours a week, every day, every week. Yeah.
Okay. And you didn't have any other courses other than this class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Nathaniel, how was your work week?
It's the same. So it's 40, 45 hours a week.
With just this class?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Can
Yeah.
I ask a quick question, just for maybe everyone? If you had to do this alone, do you think you would have had no problem doing it by yourself? Or do you think that the teams made it manageable?
I think the comprehensiveness of each of the disciplines was a little more than what I could have done on my own. I don't know where Jess is, but it partnering up really does reflect more of a work environment, like I was saying earlier, but it does have its benefits where, you know, one could really focus in on a specific discipline.
I personally think that this kind of project would be just better results wise to do with someone, because you can get advanced into the project more. If you were to assign a project with like maybe a house that was really developed in structural and passive energy, then yeah, I think individual would work well. But like the size of this project, and you know, just trying to get as much information you want to, I think it's better collaborative.
Can I ask both of you, what was the largest size project you would have undertaken before this one? how many square feet or how many stories, if you can remember that.
How complicated, maybe too.
Yeah.
From an educational standpoint, or at
Yeah,
work?
yeah.
From an academic standpoint.
I in school I did a 50,000 square foot underwater research facility, and had to do all the calculations on how the shape of it would work. It wasn't nearly as comprehensive in the mechanical or the structural. I had just finished, so I had some of those calculations fresh in my mind. But from a comprehensive building design, I probably 50,000 or less.
And you, Jess?
The last time I did something project similar to this was actually my third year at NJIT, and it was about like 5 stories too. But the level of work that was put into it compared to this was not like near it. Like it was really schematic, structure, mechanical, all that stuff was just so weak. And I think at that time, because I was just getting used to studio, that was a studio collaborative project too. It was me and someone else. So we were too young still learning about structure, but we proposed some of that stuff, but it, like learning it here, I think it was definitely not what we could have done more.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Does the school teach these MEP courses before this semester?
Yeah, they're taken in the 4th year of the undergraduate program. There's 2.
Just like as a building systems class, or is it more specific than that?
Well, there's two courses that are about, let's say, electrical, plumbing, acoustics, HVAC. There are 2 courses that are construction systems, and then there are 3 courses in structures.
Okay.
They all, to a certain extent, have like a projects in them, although some are probably more homework type lectures. Construction systems is much more like a studio.
Yeah.
In a sense that it's really dominated by a semester-long project. Of course, it's augmented by lectures and demonstrations.
Okay. Great.
Very interesting. Well, you guys were exemplary in a lot of ways. You know, the work was very, very high level. You guys run your sort of little practice, your intrastate practice very professionally. I appreciated that. I would say for you, Jess, if I could pick on you for just a moment, I think the issue of getting to studio on time, you did push the limit with us on that, and I tried to be flexible and understanding about that. I hope that as you move through the graduate program here, that you have equally sort of understanding and flexible professors. It may be something that you have to reevaluate. Maybe you run the class from the office, for example, and you know, I don't know how it's going to work for you, but the classes with some professors, you know, they may be actually a lot more flexible. They may be able to say, oh, well, I don't do it the way Mark does it, so I'm going to, you know, we can meet on what night is good for you, Wednesday night, and we can meet on Sunday morning. You know, I just personally don't have that kind of latitude. My own schedule requires a schedule.
Yeah,
I had to schedule school just like I schedule if I'm going to golf on Saturday, right? That way everything falls into an equivalent kind of commitment. So for you to be, you know, making your way to the class and you know, coming in on your phone on the subway, for example, that's kind of pushing the limit of it, but it worked. But you know, if I can give some advice, be alert to you. It would be alert to the possibility that you're going to run into people that are going to be less flexible or less accommodating, not because they're meaner or they're angrier or whatever. It's just that life is sometimes more demanding, and you might be in a situation where they won't be as sort of sensitive to that. But I think for you, it worked okay. I just I just want to put that out there so you can think about ways to mitigate that next time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, this in general was an experience to kind of like break down my weaknesses or like things that I can improve on, not just like design wise.
Well, that's a good way to look at it then. So you take that well. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's something I've noticed, and I think the great thing too that I got paired up with Nathan was that like I knew that I was also on his schedule too, so
good.
I had to kind of respect both the studio and my partner.
Great. Okay, good. And that's something that you'll want to like unpack early on with your next partners in studios or whatever, as well as your professor. But it's not, it can't just be, but I'm traveling and I can't be in class. You may have to identify other ways to be there so that you don't have to rely on being late and watching the class in a later, YouTube video. Because I don't know, quite honestly, that other professors do what we are doing, which is to stream these and record them on YouTube. I've done it that way because I don't actually know why I do it that way anymore, because I've been doing it for so long this way. My YouTube page is filled with hours and hours and hours of these conversations, and I've dumped a number of them, and there's still a number there. But you just may miss material that is not recoverable. So I wouldn't want that to happen. That would diminish your education as well. But a really strong project. I enjoyed working with you guys, and I do hope that there's an opportunity in our future that we can meet. Okay?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Good luck, guys. Have a good summer.
Thank you.
Take care. You too. Thank you.
Let's see. I don't see Trevor yet. I don't see Dasmond yet. Andrew, can you grab Dasmond?
Yeah, I think she said her phone died. I could try texting her and see.
I just sent her another invitation. Can't she plug it in, I wonder?
Says, I'm on the side of the road awaiting a tow truck. My phone is dying.
Yeah.
That's the 619 message.
So she called a tow truck to...
Must have a car problem, presumably.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with her.
Wow. And so we've see, and we don't have Trevor yet, so we can't move on.
Is Richard able to contact Trevor or Sidenza? Or I'm sorry,
Alec.
Is Alec able to contact Trevor?
Well, I think what's happening is that Trevor misunderstood the commitment tonight, and he's actually leaving for Albania tomorrow. So I think he's in a mad.
He's getting his visa. And
well, probably just shopping too, right? Getting all the stuff you got to take
to get ready
to be away for a month or whatever he's going to do. So, So I mean, we can talk to you individually, Andrew, and Alec. Alec, why don't we go to you first, because you've been well. Let's actually Andrew got here early as well. So Andrew, why don't we just entertain comments and questions or comments about the class from you, and perhaps then Dasmond can look at this online later. Does that work?
Definitely, that sounds good to me.
Okay, good. So you guys were pretty much, in terms of like evaluations, you showed progress and evolution, and you did almost, for me, the unimaginable. You pulled this work through the finish line you pushed it through, you pulled it through. Like I said in the review the other day, it was maybe both kinds of forces pulling and pushing. I'm hopeful that you don't feel bad about my occasional exasperation with you guys. I'm hopeful that you don't feel bad about being singled out as you guys were on a few occasions throughout the course of the reviews. I know that in our own conversations, Andrew, you've admitted, right, that like Caitlin and Casey, that you overcommitted yourself with work and these things. So I know that your own business is like eclipsing your ability to be like in studio and working on the project as much as you wanted it to. And I think for me, given what I see, what you do at work, because I've sort of have an ambient awareness of it, and given what I know about your own interests in design through that and through what you showed here in this studio, I think the same thing I said to Casey and Caitlin earlier could be said for both of you, that even though you guys did pull this through and did, very, very capable work at the end, I think you guys are both maybe capable of much more. And I hope you don't take that the wrong way. I hope you take that as an incentive to do better. So I guess I just want to put that out there for you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's all understood. All your advice, and when we were slowing down and everything, that was deserved. So I appreciate you still having hope in us and everything. And of course, thank you to Jasmine. Even though she's not here, she did so much work. She was great to be understanding and work with throughout the whole time, being so busy.
Sure. So do you have anything else that you'd like to share about this experience of working on a team project that maybe helps us do this better next time?
I think it went great. I mean, it's the first time online class that was like this. All the other ones were like the one you were talking about, how it's so different. So I think it worked really well. You were great to meet on the weekends whenever we needed help. You were there for us. Same with Professor Farrow. So that was really, really nice to see. And
I mean, if you continue, and are you continuing on, Andrew? I mean, is that, are you getting?
Not right now.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, you're like one of these people that could do what you're doing now, like Bob Vila, for the rest of their life, right? And you could, I assume, make a very handsome wage doing that. So it seems like you're using your architectural education to finesse your work, to make your work at work, your business, right, even better.
Definitely been freelancing work to people across the U.S. too lately for designs. So maybe eventually I'll go for the architecture degree, but for now I'm just using what I learned and putting it towards my business.
Yeah. So your expectation is to finish with an undergraduate degree at the end of this class. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then not taking a master's degree for the reasons we just talked about, correct?
Yeah, just holding me back at this point too much, but maybe in the future.
Okay. So and I said this to to others before. I certainly understand. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I certainly understand that, and I understand it for you because you have a different kind of motive, right? You're running a business now that most of us would only dream of having, and I think that's a justifiable sort of distraction.
Thank you.
But I do want to be a little. I mean, I don't want to end on a crabby note, but I am a little disappointed that I couldn't get through to you guys a lot of the time, and I felt like that. I felt like I would say things, I would draw things, I would explain things in very what I hoped were clear terms, but I just like when I saw the work after that transaction, right? It still had the problem that brought us together in the first place. So I was thinking, what's the deal? Where am I failing here? But I feel like that her commitments to work where she's working, and probably all of the other classes that she had, the number of which, the likes of which I don't know, honestly, and your own business, which you know, you have clients calling you probably when you're in class because they're wondering when you're going to be done, or can you come an hour later because someone's, you know, something's going on at the house. So I feel like the work could have been better because you took on too much, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is a very difficult thing for our students, because it's a conundrum. They need to work, they want to work, or they have a good job, so they're excited to work, but it's coming at the cost of something else, which is the quality of your own product, it impacts your grades, it impacts your outcomes. So I guess I just had to say that.
Okay, yeah, I agree with all of that. That makes sense, though, and you're spot on.
Yeah, there was a point for me. I'd just share it with you. I was working in a very well-known firm, and I really liked the work I was there. But I was at a point in my third year in the semester of architecture where all the course workload was getting to the point where I couldn't keep the job. And I actually was working for someone who was a professor at IIT, and I think he understood. I said, "Listen, I have to make a choice. It's either
right."
It's either I don't finish school, which I don't want to do, or or I have to leave here because I just can't keep up both. So it was painful. I did have to step out for a couple of semesters just to basically salvage and keep on track. But eventually, I was able to get back going in firms again. But you have to look realistically at what you can achieve with the hours you have in the day. And I hate to tell you what my rule of thumb is, but I know that Leslie Michalek would agree with me. Take the number of hours you work in a week, take the number of credits you take in a semester, and keep it less than 29. And that I would suspect.
So you add those together. So if you have
correct.
15 credit hours, you can only take 14. You can only work 14 hours, or vice versa.
And that's not just my own rule. I actually based that on some readings I did with high school students and how many hours a week they could work.
Yeah.
In the school year. So mine is similar to that. But she's also told me over the years, she said, if you look at our best student profile, they work 12 hours a week max for the most part, if they're full time.
Makes sense.
And I hate to tell you this, but when I first came to Lawrence, I was asked to be the advisor for all the students on probation. And they all got it, sat in my office and they talked to me, and one after another, the only thing that I kept hearing from them is their overcommitment. I worked so many hours a week, I was trying to have a social life, and I was taking so many classes that I couldn't keep it all up. And hence I'm on probation. So overcommitment is a serious issue. And I think balancing work and school is something that obviously everyone needs to take into consideration.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So, I mean, you're a pretty level-headed young man, Andrew. You're actually really interesting to talk to. You have a very sort of professional demeanor about you, and I think you run this class. You talk to us the way I suspect you talk to your owners. You're agreeable. You want to deliver. You want to excel, and make everyone happy. But I think ultimately, it may be a moment in your career when you want to make Andrew happy, right? And do good work that you're going to be proud of. And while it may be that this particular studio was not the moment in your career where you did work that you could be, exceedingly proud of, I think maybe if you think about this conversation a little bit later as you mature, and think about what advice you might give to a young person that's coming into the finished carpentry business, and finding the same kinds of struggles you've experienced, I hope you give the same kind of patient advice that Professor Farrow and hopefully I are giving you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. I am also thrilled once again that you flew in for this review. It was great to meet you, and I also think that contributed to a much better showing for you guys. So
Definitely.
good on you for doing that.
Thanks. I wish we could have spoken more together, but short.
That's all right. That's all right. I was glad to be able to meet you.
Definitely. Same here.
All right. Have a good summer, and I'll let you know if I'm ever out in Darien or
New York City, hour away.
East, Greenwich or whatever. Okay.
Definitely. Thank you.
I'll give you a shout. Take care. All right.
Care.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks.
So, Alec, you hung around.
I'm here.
All right. Well, we're going to do this just like we did a moment ago without your partner. That's going to put all the pressure on you to summarize your impressions. You've maybe overheard some of these conversations. And since
I listened in a little bit on the last conversation you just had with Andrew.
Yeah, so I'm a little over. My water glass is empty, and I'm a little over parched. So I'll let you maybe weigh in on. Is that a little baby behind you?
What's that?
Is that a
no? That's my girlfriend, actually.
She has like the smallest feet, or she's really far away.
Both. A little bit of both. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Andrew, can you maybe reflect a little bit on your partnership with Trevor and how this project went for you?
I really enjoyed my partnership with Trevor. I think we worked well together.
Yeah.
Our schedules didn't match up necessarily, but I think we had a pretty good back and forth with our different iterations each week. Just kind of organizing. He's really good at keeping us on pace. Like, all right, here's what we have to do. Here's what I can take care of. I have this time. Like, all right. And then I come back with, I have so much time. I can work on this. We're going to meet back tomorrow at whatever and check in and see how we're doing. And I think there were times in the semester where we struggled with that a little bit, but then towards the end, I think we definitely got a lot better at communicating how much we need to get done, when we're meeting, and just completing all the tasks at hand.
Did you find that you organized that schedule and those calendars and those appointments, or did Trevor do that?
I think Trevor a little bit more, but it was definitely collaborative. He likes to take specific notes about, like, he likes checklists a lot. So that's just the way he works.
Yeah, that's sort of, he strikes me that way.
I was, I'm good with, that's not necessarily how I always work, but it worked for a partnership very well. But we definitely, I think we communicated with each other very well throughout the semesters, like, depending on whatever's going on. If we're struggling in one aspect or we're stuck on something, we were able to talk and figure out how to move it forward.
Alec, what do you think he learned from you this semester, working together?
I don't know. That's you'd have
let me ask this question: what do you think you learned from him?
I think I'd have to say his. I learned a lot about the way he works. Very, very organized. I've not always been the most organized student, and to me, my impression of Trevor is that he's very, very organized in the way he approaches his work and his studies, and extracurriculars as well.
And that organization is apparent even in the way that he communicates, like in his emails, right, and in his verbals. He's kind of calm and even, always like professional, always polite, almost ridiculously polite, and I mean that as a gentle jab, right? He's still polite. It always makes me smile because I've known him for a year already, but he still treats me as I'm as if I'm the most important person in the room, and I'm like, Trevor, it's just me, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if, and so, and this goes back to our sort of earlier conversation this semester, the one between you and me. I'm wondering if maybe learning more about how to be better at organization can help sort of find that speaking voice that you're wanting to have. If that could be a way to help, because I don't know how, honestly, to help you in that regard, other than kind of my own lame brain ideas about, well, just practice public speaking more, and take a Toastmasters class, you know.
Yeah, actually, I did that a little bit this past summer.
Good. I don't know how that works for you, but it's definitely they're definitely tough. But it is something that I want to encourage you to continue to do. Also, you know, Alec, I have to admit that when you confessed this to me, I started to like look at you and listen and try to sort of see if what you were, because I actually for a moment I didn't believe you. You know what I mean? I like, really? Because I never
I get that a lot.
It never dawned on me that this was an apprehension, right? So I started to look closer at the way you spoke and the way you talked, and there is no obvious, you know, manifestation of this in your own sort of voice, right? And you don't stammer, you don't sweat more, you don't have a nervous tick, you don't have a physical sort of attribute or a series of attributes that make it clear that you hate doing this at all, or whatever that emotion is that you conveyed to me. And actually, and this is where I want to take you. Actually, as I watched you more and listened to you more, I grew more and more convinced that either you were making marked strides in this over this course of this semester, which I thought was ridiculous because there was nothing can change or get fixed that quickly, or I need to tell you that, as far as I'm concerned, and this is what I want to get across to you, if you can find ways to organize your thoughts better, and if you can approach conversations like these presentations as a more conversational kind of thing, maybe that will be less threatening to you and less challenging for you. Whatever you can figure out, I think that will help you, because honestly, Alec, I don't know how anyone can survive in any career, much less architecture, where we spend so much time communicating, not just through our pens, our chalk, but like through words and arm movements. So you have a very difficult road ahead of you, but whatever tools you can muster to solve this, I hope you find them.
Yeah, it's seemingly paradoxical. Like you said, it didn't seem apparent at the beginning of the semester until it came up, and I've had that experience with almost every professor that I've spoken to about it, where because I know that in conversation and in class, just it's easy for me, but when it comes to that organized presentation, there's some little thing that changes that makes it more difficult for me.
Did working collaboratively this semester ease that anxiety or that apprehension?
Yeah, definitely. Having a partner to kind of bounce that off of was like, hey, I have this kind of obstacle that I run into. And Trevor was very supportive throughout the semester. He's comfortable speaking, and he speaks well.
Yeah, he does.
And he was helpful for me throughout. Absolutely.
And that may be the secret to your success, is finding the right partners along the way to help you evolve your, I don't want to say the wrong words, but confidence is the word that I'm thinking of, right? So whatever it is that your partners can do to ease that burden, tap into it.
Yeah,
right? Because I definitely want you in the profession. I definitely want to see you succeed in architecture. But I also feel like given that my role is as kind of a purely practitioner who just comes in a couple of nights a week to rile you guys up, right? I feel like I need to let you know that, like, if you were working for me, I'd have to rely on you a lot more than you would be comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to have to be
and that's
some hard work on your part.
Yeah, I recognize that there's a lot of that in the career of architecture.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that there are a lot of different ways that in the professional world that we communicate. And most of those ways I don't have trouble with.
Right.
It's the one particular way in that I've run into in my schooling that has become the most difficult.
So I mean, I understand that I have difficulty hearing. I have a really bad right ear. I have a device in my left ear. I miss most conversations at work, and it's very frustrating. And I have to work very hard to stay with everyone. And it just becomes something I've had to learn how to do, and people around me realize that, but not everybody around me cares or remembers, right, that I've got this issue, that hearing loss issue. So, it's embarrassing, and I hope it's not embarrassing for you in your future, but I hope that you find ways to control that environment, right, that you're in. So that was maybe way too personal, but I do feel like, you shared that with me, and I want to end, our sort of relationship here with some perspective on it, and maybe some optimism that as far as I was concerned, I didn't see any issues, whether obvious or even subtle. I felt like, especially when I was looking for it, I felt like it seemed that you were comfortable talking about your ideas, and actually, just to make fun of you for a moment, there was a point during your really long presentation the other night when you guys were running really, really long, and I was like texting Trevor to say, would you shut him up? Like you just continued to talk, and I was like, wow, I don't even have the courage to tell Alec to like cut it off, because he's kind of in a groove right now, so I just gave you that latitude.
I do have that habit to, once I'm going. So
that's okay.
A little long times.
So Dan, I'm open to letting you weigh in on Team Trevor and Alec.
Well, I think, and with Alec, we had a lot of exchanges and emails about the HVAC system.
Yeah.
And I want to say I appreciated all of it, because basically that told me that you're really looking into this. And you're really trying to understand the system, how it works, what are the components, and you're not just trying to say, okay, now just tell me where I put the ducts. That's sort of that's not enough, and that was the right attitude. It was showing me that you were taking the time to dig into the information,
right,
and try to understand it and apply it. So I appreciated that interest level that you showed. I have a few questions that probably were the comments that others made tonight for you. One would be, what were your thoughts? Was this your first online class, and how well do you think it went? Did you have any concerns coming into it? Second question would be, how did you look at your prior coursework in terms of preparing you for this class? And you're an LTU student, correct?
Yeah.
So, what size projects were you undertaking? Do you felt that you were ready for this? Did courses help you, let's say studio or other courses, lecture courses? And then lastly, if you were working, how many hours a week you were working, and how many credits were you taking?
Okay. It's a lot to unpack. So let's start from the first one. This was my first online class. I did bring it up at the beginning. the first online studio kind of class. The only other times I've had online courses, it was over the summer. It was, I think I took 20th century history of architecture with Professor Henneberry, which was your more traditional. There's a YouTube lecture and you watch it, and then you do the readings, and then you post the discussion board. When I was registering for classes last semester, I was sitting down with Jane McBride, and we were trying to work out my schedule a little bit because I had just got my degree audit back saying I needed to take a World Masterpieces 1, which I didn't get credit for in my transfer. So we had to rework my schedule so I could get all those classes in and actually graduate this spring. And she recommended the online studio, which I didn't know about. She said Professor Farlow gets really high ratings. It's a really good class. It's all the students seem to really like it, and I was hesitant at first, like it's a studio course, and how do you collaborate in a online environment? And I have to say I'm very satisfied with how it turned out, how it was run. I'm really impressed with how well the studio went. I was, like Cody said at the beginning, I was a little hesitant at first, but I'm glad I made the choice to do the online studio. As far as coming into the class and feeling prepared, definitely a little intimidated. You know, as a comprehensive design class, wasn't sure how I wasn't so super confident and like, can I actually do this? Do I know enough? Have I learned enough from my other courses that I can do a complete building? And having a partner that was very helpful. Kind of discuss these issues. Like, I'm not sure if I know this part of the building as well. Do you understand it? Like, do you know the structure better, or do you know HVAC better, or whatever system it may be? I think I had some success in the HVAC portion because of how well I did in my HVAC and water systems class. I had Janice Means last semester, and I did very well in that class, and we worked well together. She was pretty good teacher, I think. And as far as I think studios, the studio courses helped me a lot for sure in the learning the design process. Like, how do you even start a building like this? Like, where do you go? Particularly the way I went about it was as a massing and having the exterior forces come in and build that structure, build that mass. I learned that from Jim Stevens. That's the way he sort of taught me to design in ID2. That was a similar project where we were in. We had just a block, a little chunk, a lot in New York City, 0 lot line, right next to the High Line, and he's like, "All right, this is what you have. You have to deal with this exterior force. You have the High Line right next door. How does that interact with your building?" And I think that was pretty big influence on how I approached this particular project. What was the last question?
How many hours a week were you working? And
where are you working actually, Alec?
I'm actually not working right now. I've been
What weren't you earlier this semester?
No, I work with. It's not. I'm not getting paid, but I'm working with the hockey team because I was a player, and I've just been helping out a little bit. My plan is to become the graduate assistant with the hockey team next year, so I can go to grad school and get that help with tuition that the graduate assistant program offers. I did work just a minimum wage job through my career or at school, but once it got to like ID3, I was like, all right, this is getting a little bit. The workload is pretty heavy. I don't want to overstretch myself, like you were saying before.
Yeah.
And
so, are you thinking then, Alec, of going to grad school in the fall of 18?
That's the plan. My GPA isn't the automatic bid in. I have a 2.8, so I have to do the full application, which is what I'm starting on right now. I'm making sure my portfolio is all put together in this next week or two, and then getting some recommendations and just going through the whole process of getting into graduate school. And I'm planning on attending here at Lawrence Tech.
Good.
Because I like the school and I have a lot of opportunity here with the hockey team, and I want to work in this area as well. So in the Detroit area.
Excellent.
But I also hope to get in to start internships either over the summer or even starting next year.
And if you started in the fall, you might start to take some of the maybe electives and some of the base coursework, take critical practice in the summer of 19, and then the advanced design studios in the fall and spring of 19 and 20.
Right.
Does that sound like the plan?
Yeah.
Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you in your application, Alec.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have anything else for Alec and Trevor?
No.
Alec absent Trevor?
No, other than I'm sure this was a struggle to a degree in terms of some of the challenges you have. This is, as Professor Farlow said, think about it as a capstone course, and it's meant to really require you to think about multiple coursework that you've completed over the years and to try to integrate that into the design process. And Professor Farlow and I exchanged emails throughout the semester, and I said, at one point I was taken back to my own undergraduate experience. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Illinois at Chicago. And I worked with someone named John Maxey, who's now deceased, but a Hungarian by birth and a Holocaust refugee and survivor. He was an inspiring individual, and he specialized in housing. Wrote a book called Housing. It's been published for years, and he taught a 2-semester course on housing. And I told Mark at one point, I said, God, it's like I'm back in school again. I'm looking at all these apartment units, and we're planning the floors.
I remember that conversation.
And it all is coming back to me. And the point I'm trying to make is that this was, now and then in school you have what people call aha moments. The aha moment is when, okay, now all of this starts to come together and I get it. And that was one of the classes that did it for me. It was like, now I know why I need to know something about structure, and now I know why I need to know something about site planning and something about mechanical systems, and and I have to understand the building code and pragmatic aspects like that, because this is what real practice is like.
Right.
So, and I'm hoping that that's the experience that you had here as well.
Yeah, it's definitely like I said, it was intimidating coming in to the course, but once the work started and we got going, it's like, all right, I'm starting to put these together. It's things started to make a little bit more sense as a unit rather than these individual parts that we were taught throughout the past 4 years. And I think it was pretty successful.
Well, if it's any consolation, when Glenn Leroy and Martin Schwartz approached me in 2010 to teach this online studio with those 2 tin cans and a string, because that's about what it was equivalent to, I was possibly more skeptical than you and Cody and everyone else together. and everyone else that I've taught since then, it just didn't make any sense to me. And I am so glad that I did it, and I'm so glad that I had the chance to teach with Professor Farrow this semester and Professor Rageb last semester.
So what I'd like to maybe end with a little comment. What you probably don't know, what's Mark and I have in common. We both kind of got our start in education by being hired by the same person. And so that's one of the things we have in common. And also, when I was in the interim chair slot and they were looking at people to teach,
that's absolutely right.
I said you have to find Mark Farlow and John Abella. Those are going to be the perfect people. So behind the scenes,
I remember that.
I will take credit for it.
I'm glad it was you, Dan.
I was the guy that said you have to put these guys in,
because
I knew what they were like. And Mark had been a juror in my classes for years. So, Mark had shared with you what his perspective was on being an adjunct, and so let me explain what I think the perspective is for being a full-time faculty. And it's not because you do it because you're paid, although we have to have a living in a sense. I'm independently wealthy, and most of the people I work with are not.
Absolutely.
But what we do is we believe that, for the most part, I think everyone that I know of would say that they look forward to a meaningful life that comprises teaching, research, and service. I would say that would be the reason for why I do what I do, is because I think it is a very meaningful life. You see me in the classroom, but what you don't know is that I'm part of 3 nonprofits, some in the human services and assisting those in poverty, and then one other nonprofit that actually Mark Farlow is responsible for, and that's helping to preserve the Affleck House on campus. And so when I'm not with you, I'm writing grants, going to meetings, and doing things like that. I'm also a reviewer for 2 juried publications in architecture in the technical areas, and so I have to review papers and abstracts for conferences for others. And I also write my own papers. I co-authored a couple of papers this past year with you, and working on research projects as well. I've been a research assistant and working with research assistants and a thesis advisor. So all those things sort of tie up my time, but I don't resent it. In that respect, I think it can lead to a very meaningful life. There are compromises along the way that come with that, just like there are for others as well. The compensation is one of them. I don't work and I don't seek other employment outside of what I do here. And also, I believe I wish I would spend more time with my family members that I have. So I would say that's the perspective from the full-time side.
Yeah, and it's a very important perspective, and by no means should that ever be diminished. The faculty that you all have that are, the core faculty, the full-time faculty on our campus are very engaged in so many other things that they can't possibly be evaluated on what they say that day or what they teach in that class, because they are more than the sort of the product, right, of your experience with them in a classroom. They are so much more committed to improving not only your experience as a student, but your growth as a student over time, and the students that are coming in after you as well. So their commitment is much more enduring and therefore incredibly important and incredibly underpaid, I would say.
I agree with that.
So I think that's it. I think we've been through all the groups, Dan.
Okay.
I'll exchange emails with you later, Dan, about the sort of final grade effort. We have until the 9th, but my goal would be maybe to process with you the final grades before the end of the weekend, maybe by Saturday or Sunday, if that's possible. We can make it Monday if it needs to be. I've got a matrix now of all of the grades from the research moving forward, including the options. At some point, I just need to plug and chug it.
You should have mine in the next 24 hours.
Great, that'll be easy. I'll blend them in with my spreadsheet, and we'll go from there. And I'll certainly share the sort of final evaluations with you before I go sort of live on Blackboard or Banner Web or whatever it is. And then I don't have anything else except to say, again, thank you, Dan, for everything this semester, for making it a really good one, and for making it a nice swan song for me. And please let me know if there's anything I can do to continue our relationship by sitting in on reviews with you next year.
That's a given. I just want you to come back.
Thank you. And thank you for creating these opportunities, really. I do remember that now, and I am thankful for that. It's been really a terrific experience. And thank you, guys. This has been a lot of fun working this semester, and I hope that you have nothing but sort of robust success in the weeks and years to come. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good summer.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.